Panthers defenseman Dmitry Kulikov has been suspended 2 games by the Department of Player Safety. Does the punishment fit the crime? And there have been some proposed rule changes. What do we think of them? And what changes will we like to see?
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, March 20th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. So you can follow me on X at Monoman12, follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your first purchase. You can do that all on the Gametime app. So, Florida Panther fans, sorry for no episode on Tuesday. I did actually record a podcast, just not on this feed. I was part of the Cats and Rats podcast from the 5 Reasons Sports Network with Kirby, Cody, and Nick on that one. So if you have not had a chance to listen to that yet, go ahead and go to that feed. But if you are listening to if you already have listened to that show, we already discussed the Kulikov suspension. So this episode, you'll be hearing me for the second time talking about that. But not only are you hearing me talk about it for the second time here, but it is a Wednesday, which means we will be discussing this on today's edition of the show with Jacob Winans for another edition of Winans Wednesday. And Jacob, welcome back to the show, my friend, and good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, and thanks for having me. It's been a little bit since we've had an off day episode, so this is a nice time to kind of big picture things and talk some hockey. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, big picture things indeed when it comes to the Florida Panthers, who right now, with the New York Rangers losing to the Winnipeg Jets, they are tied with them in points percentage with that big matchup on Saturday night, and 3 points behind the Boston Bruins with 2 games in hand, which with 2 more matchups. So still the schedule is very it's still right there for the Florida Panthers to get that top spot in the Eastern Conference and in the NHL. But before we get there, the Panthers do have a game coming up on Thursday, which will be a whiteout game for the Panthers. They will be wearing white for the first time planned since 2003. They did play against the Carolina Hurricanes in 2019, but that was not planned due to some some sweater changes for the Carolina Hurricanes, which forced the Panthers to wear white at home back in 2019. But they will be without Dmitry Kulikov, something that we expected, and still without Aaron Ekblad. So the Department of Player Safety has suspended Dmitry Kulikov 2 games for his illegal check to the head of Connor Sherry. The way the video explained it is not making a play on the puck, an opportunity to avoid the hit where he was to the left and then shifted to his right, where even though it wasn't a chicken wing, even though he did not extend, made initial contact to the head. I try once again to look at it at different angles, Jacob, but I still see the contact first to the shoulder and then Kulikov, his elbow to Sherry's shoulder, and then Kulikov's shoulder to the head. But still, there is contact there as far as that. And once again, intent does not matter as far as that. What is your take on the suspension? Fair, foul, or somewhere in between? What is your opinion on that?
I'm a little bit torn because I do understand that the onus is on the player making the hit to do it safely. I get that. In that situation, though, it's such a bang play, and playing the puck only with going into that net front scrum with just the stick to try to play that puck and not getting any body contact. There's a good chance that the scoring chance is completely erased if he doesn't go in to make body contact. And then you also have to factor in the fact that Connor Sherry is a much shorter player. He's about 5'9", and that may be generous. He's that's his official height listing, but the point being he's considerably shorter than Dmitry Kulikov, so there's not a whole lot of area for him to make that body contact. So it's, for me, it seemed like a bang bang play. It seemed like a situation where Kulikov had to make a really quick decision and either play body or puck. And in that situation, you're trying to keep that scoring chance alive. So you got to go with body in that play. At the end of the day, a goal was taken off. He's ejected from the game. To me, I feel like I would have left it at that, especially given that the play didn't result in injury at all. It's not like there was anything malicious. He, in that situation, if he wanted to target the head and put Connor Sherry out for the next little while, he very easily could have gone in full force and targeted the head, and Connor Sherry wouldn't have gotten up. But there's no injury on the play. There's nothing malicious about it. I would have left it at the match penalty. But player safety is going to take these things seriously. It's somewhat subjective. It's not always going to be cut and dry, and there is some gray area in some of these hits. So I'm not gonna sit here and complain about it. He didn't get too much of a serious suspension here, and I you just kind of have to take it and move on. But me personally, I feel like the suspension's a little bit overkill. Puts the Panthers in a tough spot, already being down Aaron Ekblad, but should also be an opportunity for some guys, some more ice time for guys, and possibly a debut. So we'll see what comes of it.
Yeah, and and that's a good way to segue to a possible Panthers debut of Tobias Bjornfoot, a former first-round pick from the Los Angeles Kings. Spent time there along with time with Vegas too, and just watched a little bit of his tape too, and just incredible skater and captain of the U18 team for Sweden. So leadership is there, and all. And a lot of the highlights were just how well he's able to fight off checks too. Not necessarily an offensive defenseman by any matter, but the fact that he's going to be making his debut, he's a left-handed shot. So right now, their only right-handed shot is Brandon Montour, currently on the roster too. So I'm wondering what's at first, a few days ago, I was thinking, are they gonna split Mikkola and Montour for a little bit, and then and all for that? But I also think about it like this: is like you got to keep your top four intact and all, and that's going to put more emphasis on the minutes too. Gustav Forsling's average time on ice is 21 minutes. I was looking at his game logs; there have been 20 some days of 24, 23 up there. So you're going to expect more time there for him too. So how are you expecting this to look? Because I'm not sure if we're gonna see a whole lot of minutes from a possible Bjorn for Mahura pair.
Yeah, I think that group obviously. I feel like at least for the first game of the 2-game suspension here, you're going to try to shelter that pair as much as possible. Mahura hasn't looked great this season, and Bjornfoot, obviously, he'd be just debuting. He's also a young defenseman, very young in years. I don't think you throw too much on them right away.
Mm-hmm.
I think depending on how they play in sheltered minutes in the first game without Kulikov, you can give them a little bit more in game 2. But regardless, I think Gus Forsling's minutes are going to be through the roof. I think Oliver Ekman-Larsson's minutes are going to be very high. I think Brandon Montour and Nico Mikkola are going to play a ton of minutes. It's really going to be Forsling and Montour that are going to probably get up close to the 25, 30 minutes, 30-minute mark in these next 2 games, which is not necessarily ideal given that we are coming down towards the playoffs. You don't want to overexert some of these guys, but in a 2-game sample size, they can handle it. It's not a huge concern. They're going to be leaned on heavily, and they're also going to have to really step up the defense in particular, because Aaron Ekblad being out right now, the defense has looked a little bit disjointed, has given up a little bit too much on the rush. Aaron Ekblad is that shutdown top pair defenseman, and the defense has really, really missed him. So I think the onus right now has to be on protecting the house. You get Ekblad back in a couple of weeks, hopefully, and really stabilize things. But right now they're reeling a little bit, keeping pucks out of the net. So really locking down the defense. And I think as a young defenseman coming in, it's easier. It's a little bit better to be coming in and having to worry just about defense and not have to worry so much about, oh, should I pinch? Should I jump up into the rush? You want Bjornfoot to play his game, but you also want to just make it clear, like right now, offense is secondary. Just worry about protecting the house. Just stay responsible and play a simple game. And I think he's capable of doing that. So we'll see how it looks. I'd be shocked if he gets anything over maybe the 15-minute range, but we'll see what he looks like in that sample size and go from there. It would not be the first time that Bill Zito has found a diamond in the rough Swedish defenseman on waivers. So
yeah, we've seen that history with him, and most of his waiver claims that have worked out have been on the defensive side of things. Even though Josh Mahura has regressed a little bit this season, he did play all 82 in the playoffs, so he's great at identifying that. But we'll see, as the Panthers will be hitting the ice for practice at Fort Lauderdale in about 30 minutes from the time of this recording. So we'll see more about that. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss more about the proposed rule changes from the NHL GM's meeting that happened in our own backyard here in South Florida. We are going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans, mark your calendars for tonight, March 20th at 7 p.m. for the best MLB season preview, coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. On March 20th at 7 p.m., be the first to get local insights from the MLB local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Find it March 20th at 7 p.m. on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Back on this Wednesday, March 20th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So, Jacob, the NHL GM's meeting has just wrapped up in our own backyard here in South Florida, and some of the proposed rule changes that have the GMs have discussed. They got into some group sessions and then also discussed what they would like to see. This segment is going to be focused on the changes that are proposed. They still have to go to the competition committee, and the ones that have stood out to me are delay of game, puck over glass, and also high sticking. So now, if it is called on the ice for delay of game, you can now challenge for the play to see if it was knocked off of a stick or a player or someone else for that. And if you are unsuccessful in the challenge, it can result in a possible 5-on-3, which creates some pretty exciting hockey. And if you're on the end where your team is down, creates a little bit of anxiety there too. With that. 2 full minutes of 5-on-3, and also with 5-on-3, a high sticking tweak. But this one is only if it's called. A team can challenge where if they were hit by a teammate, stick, puck, or their own stick. If wrong, 5-on-3, which can not currently only can be reviewed if it is a double minor. That's the only way it can be reviewed, which the discussion you're thinking, is with the 2-minute one, you can't go there unless you see blood, also with blood too, when it comes to the double minor with the high stick there. But what's your take on some more 5-on-3s with high sticks and a puck over glass review that could be if a team loses a challenge?
I think it makes challenging those plays high stakes, and I think it's good. There's a couple things that I'd like to see. I'd like to really see with that. I think there's a kind of a fine line here. So as we know, the referees will tend to give the coaches a couple of minutes or a little bit of time just to look at their video boards on the bench before they decide to challenge or not. Puck over the glass, it's such a close bang play. I wonder how much time the coaches on the bench are going to be wanting to look at the video tablets before they decide whether to challenge or not. So that's something to keep an eye on with this. But I think it makes it high stakes, and that's a tough thing to identify on video. So I feel certain there will be some challenges that don't get overturned. And you might see some full 2 minutes of 5-on-3, which is super exciting, unless you're the team killing. And then beyond that, I think the high stick reviews are really good for the game. I think I think a lot of those go undetected, and I think some of the ones that do get called are real skinny calls, and there's not really much you can do about it. So I think having that challenge in place is good. It would definitely be wishful thinking, and this is obviously not within the scope of the rule. But if you were to review high sticking penalties, I would really love to see something in place to identify embellishment through replay on some of those high sticks, which that would be tough to do given that it is subjective. But I think a lot of the high sticking penalties come with really dramatic whipping the head back and laying on the ice. And if you go to replay and see that a guy is barely touched, if we're going to use the embellishment rule, that's really what it's for. Or if you go to the replay and see that the guy wasn't touched at all, and throws his head back and tries to draw a penalty, I would love to see that penalized. But obviously that's not within the scope of the rule. But just something to think about for future rule changes. If be too much, you kind of see it creeping into the game a little bit. Some of the diving and embellishing, especially from younger players, it's almost a skill at this point, and I think you want to nip that in the bud. So that's something that I would love to see, but it's obviously not within the scope of the rule. But this is definitely a good start. I think if you have video at your disposal, doesn't make any sense not to use it as long as you can do it in a expedited and timely fashion. You don't want to slow down the game. It's supposed to be a fast-paced game. You don't want too many breaks in play, but using video to your advantage to make sure you get the calls right is important. Hockey is an incredibly fast-paced game. It's got to be one of the toughest games to referee. So having that the video aid to help you in making sure that you get the calls right, I think is only a positive thing.
Yeah, and just with and there are going to be some close frames too, where it's like, does it hit, does it not? And if it's like one inch, that's where it's got to go to the discretion there, and that's where, and there's going to be some growing pains too along with that when it comes to those reviews. Player discipline, GMs are encouraged to visit the Department of Player Safety. That's one. Line changes after a net is dislodged. So the offending team cannot change regardless of the player dislodging the net. But also there's one that the goalies are now facing, could face a penalty if they dislodge the net. Also, this Bleacher Report tweeted the Henrik Lundqvist rule, because there was a breakaway that happened with the Penguins a few years ago where he loses his stick and just knocks off the net too, and all. That one I believe that's fair when it comes to that. But at the same time, in that situation for Lundqvist, don't know if he there were questions on whether he was hurt there too. So there's a little bit there's I'm 50-50 on the goalie getting the penalty, but also goalies can now get away with that stuff. If their legs are strong enough and they push off the post. So now it leaves more to judgment on the officials there, whether they do think that the goalie pushed off on purpose. What do you think of that?
I think it's something that really needed to be cracked down on. I think like you said, goalies are so strong. They have they're such powerful. I guess they have such powerful lower bodies that they kind of push side to side at extremely high speeds, and they push side to side with full force. And it's not uncommon to see guys intentionally bang into the post when going over to cover that side of the net and knock the net off the hinges, and everybody gets to regroup. So I think cracking down on that is huge. It should be the goalie's responsibility to make sure they don't knock the net off the hinges. You have to. Every other player on the ice has to control. Has to have exceptional body control. You can't recklessly hit guys. You can't recklessly swing your stick around. And I think where goalies are concerned, it should just be a given. You can't recklessly bang into the post and knock the net off the hinges and removing a scoring chance. So I think it's good for the game, and it's something no one likes to see. No one likes to see the game slow down when the net's off the hinges. An exciting scoring chance. You have zone time, passing the puck around. Defense is tired, and then goalie knocks the net off, and it's just a face off. It doesn't. It's not within the spirit of the game. So I think it's a good change. I think it's good to crack down on it.
Yeah, and once again, it comes down to judgment there when it comes to whether you do think. But now with it being knocked off, now there is a consequence for that. But we're gonna transition over to segment number 3. We're gonna finish off. We're just gonna finish off listing some of the proposed rule changes, and then some of the ones that were not touched when it comes to the GM's meetings. We're gonna talk about that more on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. And you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fast and easiest way to buy all your tickets for music, comedy, theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all in prices and views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. See the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All in prices show your total upfront, so you know what you're getting. Getting a great deal before you check out. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. Find exclusive flash deals on tickets like football, hockey, basketball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section and Gametime picks the seats for big time savings. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Segment number 3 here on this Wednesday, March 20th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday. So finishing up some of the rule changes, proposed rule changes. Some of them are players' skates over the boards. If they are not getting on the ice, we saw a referee get cut a few weeks ago. So first it's a warning, and then another one could be a minor penalty. And we've seen what happened earlier late last year with Adam Johnson and everything in the UK after that. So cracking down on possible injuries to not just players but officials. Faceoffs following an icing. Now the offensive center gets a warning before being tossed. And goalie mask. If the goalie loses the mask and is blown dead, team can get an offensive draw at the choice of dot and goalie warmups. If the concussion spotter spots it and goalies removed, the goalie coming in does get a 45-second to 60-second warm up. But Jacob, there's a few things that are left that are not touched as far as that. No changes to boarding, reverse hits, which we saw a great reverse hit from Matthew Tkachuk the other day, pulled off of Philip Forsberg, and goals from high sticks, which I'm very okay with, especially if you have a camera view behind the goalie, which you could see whether it's above the net too. And 3-on-3, there's no changes to 3-on-3, but I have a little bit of an idea as far as what I would like to see 3-on-3. We did not discuss this in our pre-production meeting. I wanted to leave it for the show. But as far as 3-on-3, there have been proposals with possible over and back in relation to basketball. But with my lacrosse background, I wanted to mix in and ask you what you think about a possible rule change as far as 3-on-3. So in the high school game in lacrosse, over and back does not apply until you gain the restraining line, which in hockey would be your offensive blue line and all. But in college, over and back wouldn't apply until the 80-second shot clock reaches 60 and you're over the line. But in the 3-on-3 hockey, if you have a little bit of time to get it over, but then once again, over and back would not apply until you gain the line. So there wouldn't be that as much of circling back into the neutral zone, and there's a possible for the players to swarm in between center ice and the offensive blue line. So maybe some more, not necessarily. Maybe we'll see more stick infractions. As far as reaching, if you're trying to go for a breakaway too. But also when it comes to gaining that zone, once you do, you're going to have some times where it's going to deflect off a stick, and then the referee can do this. The fact that you can bring it back and it's not ruled that too. So I think that is my proposed change as far as what I would like to see as far as 3-on-3 in relation to basketball and lacrosse going there. What do you think of that possible crazy idea of mine when it comes to 3-on-3 overtime?
I don't think that crazy idea is all that crazy. I think 3-on-3 has lost a little bit of what it was intended for, with back and forth scoring chances, 2-on-1s, a big save leading to a transition. I feel like the 3-on-3 has lost a little bit of that, and it's become a lot of circling, setting picks that are not really supposed to be set. It's a drop pass and a pick, and that seems to be the only 3-on-3 play that every team kind of goes with, and that's not really what 3-on-3 was intended for. And the Panthers have done relatively well in overtime, but it doesn't take much to go on a horrible losing skid of overtime games, and games that you probably deserve a better outcome. We've seen that with a few teams this year. You see teams like the Islanders and the Bruins just having a ton of overtime losses, and a lot of the times it's a drop pass and a pick play, and that's really not what the game was, or what the 3-on-3 was put in place for. That we've seen the Panthers have an overtime game with the Washington Capitals that was everything you want to see in 3-on-3 overtime. And I think anything you can do to make 3-on-3 look more like that is something that you should really consider. And I think a shot clock and over and back rule, that those are great ideas that could force teams to take chances and force teams to make plays and have skill guys out there who, when you essentially shrink the ice in half, you're going to have no choice but to get creative and have your best players be your best players. And I think that's really what you want from a 3-on-3 overtime. So I love that idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And let's not forget that even though faceoffs aren't the be all end all, if you win that draw, you are gonna possess the puck quite a bit, and teams are doing a lot to not turn it over and create a breakaway for the opposition. So the fact that if there is that applied, which once again the idea is over and back would not apply until you gain the zone. That's the idea behind it. So there will be a lot more pressure on the puck from the defense too, and maybe more opportunity to just dump it in too on 3-on-3. And then if you lose a battle, someone's right in front of the net, and there's a scoring opportunity there. So you don't see as much of that in the 3-on-3 when you just see more possession and the circling back and all. And if you do circle back, you only have so much space in between the blue line and center ice there too. So that creates, I believe that would create for some really exciting hockey, especially if you turn it over, and also if you lose it and it goes past, it's kind of like the hand pass and the high stick. You're waiting and making sure it's not touched. So once it is, then face off there too. So that would be part of that idea as far as that. But one last thing before we get out of here about what else has been proposed. Approved actually by the NHL is Amazon is doing a 10 to 12 player behind the scene series. That's likely going to be a fall release too. So multiple sports leagues have been involved with Amazon. We've seen it with the NFL and all, which now with the NHL getting involved, I have no reason to cancel my Amazon Prime subscription now if it's now going to be an all year thing for me personally. But now 10 to 12 players behind the scenes, and we got to guess that Matthew Tkachuk is going to be part of that. I mean, it's obvious. He was part of a People magazine during the Stanley Cup final and all, and just a marketable player. I mean, think about Crosby, Ovechkin, possible Nathan McKinnon. Also, the discussion of what his lifestyle is off the ice with his diet and his discipline, and all. Maybe Jason Robertson too. What Connor Bedard, rookie phenom too. Him just coming into the league. What's he like off the ice? I know he has one mode and it's hockey too. What are your thoughts on this possible behind the scenes series that Amazon is going to be bringing to NHL fans and possibly even casual fans?
Yeah, I feel like it's a given that Matthew Tkachuk would be involved, and he's a complicated player because he's one of the most marketable personalities. He's one of the best attitudes off the ice, and as a hockey fan, you love that he's an American superstar. He's a throwback player. Plays a tough style of hockey. Is not all skill. He's not a great skater, but he's a guy who makes his mark in every area of the game, and pretty much single-handedly carried his team to a Stanley Cup final last season. You can't get more marketable than that. He's also plays in South Florida, which is a fantastic sports market. You can't get any more marketable than that. But at the same time, so many hockey fans absolutely despise him because of the way he plays on the ice. So I think it's a situation where he's loved, he's hated, and you cannot help but watch. And I think I think assuming he's included in this, which it would be a big miss if he's not. I think he's must see TV, and for the greater scope of growing the game and building the viewership and building the sport up. I think this is huge because the biggest knock on hockey sometimes is that hockey players lack personality. The NHL for so long has lacked marketable personalities because hockey players are so conditioned and so used to giving the same textbook answers in press conferences, and it's a lot of times player interactions with NHL guys are very dry. They lack the personalities that NBA players, NFL players tend to have off court or off the field or off the ice, and I think to an extent that's a little bit exaggerated. I think NHL players have lots of personality. It's just we don't always see it. So I think this would go a long way in doing that, offering a glimpse inside. And I think also just kind of seeing the day-to-day of NHL superstars. I could very well see it having an impact similar to the growth of F1 racing here in the States with the Netflix documentary Drive to Survive. That was an absolute hit. And people immediately after watching that took an interest in F1. I think you could absolutely see that kind of impact with this from Amazon. And I think it's a big opportunity for Amazon and for these players to show their personality. I think it can only help to grow the game. So I'm excited for it. I'll definitely be watching.
I'm excited. And instead of always seeing them walk the company line and all when it comes to their answers, and also add on not just F1 with Drive to Survive, but Full Swing when it comes to the game of golf. So that's another relation in all when it comes to getting more of who these people are, what are their training regimen too when it comes to that and all. And it's gonna be fun. I'm very excited to see when it does come out this fall. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much once again for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, and another successful Wine-ins Wednesday on an off day, but no shortage of topics here on the show. Tell everybody where they can find you online, my friend.
Yep, you can follow me on X at Jacob1ins8.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much once again, and I will see you next week as we will be doing a post game from of the Boston Bruins home game, big one coming up. So see you next week, my friend.
That one's going to be huge. I can't wait.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On AHL network, including Locked On AHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steele Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.